Welcome to Pyrography Made Easy. I'm Brenda. In this tutorial episode, I am going to show you how to create the evergreen trees that I put on this background. A lot of the video is in real time, and I hope you'll find it informative. So let's get started. Use a writer pen tip and burn a line to represent the tree trunk. I am using Colwood's C Standard Writer. Start at the top of the line and burn really short squiggly lines and a couple of dots. Then burn a short semi-horizontal line to represent a side branch. Afterwards, burn squiggly lines that hang down from that branch. Make the lines shorter in length as you near the tip or the end of the branch. On the longer squiggly lines, add 1 to 2 horizontal squiggly lines and a few dots here and there. The squiggly lines represent smaller needle-covered branches. The dots help break up the lines, giving them more realism, and it adds more foliage. As you work your way down the tree, increase the length of the branches. Make sure you vary the length and the placement of those branches. Also vary the angle or the direction of the branch. Another thing is to vary the length of the squiggly lines. Occasionally add a really short squiggly line that angles upward from the branch. You can also add a dot or two above but very close to the branch. I also add short squiggly lines near the tree trunk to fill in areas that the branches don't cover. Keep in mind that these are distant trees, so we're not going to bother with shadows and other fine details like that. Instead, they are more of a silhouette, just a complex-looking silhouette. I'm burning my evergreen trees behind a group of deciduous trees. The deciduous trees are not completed yet. I have a video that explains how to create distant or background maple trees. I'm using the same techniques described in that video to create the deciduous trees that you see here. I will put a link to that video in the description below. If you are not comfortable creating free-form trees, then practice this technique on paper using either a pencil or an ink pen. Use the exact same methods that I'm using to burn in the tree. When you're ready, draw the tree onto the board with a pencil and then burn over it. Once the tree is burned in, then rub over it with a pencil eraser to remove any residual graphite. As you gain confidence in your skills, you will discover that you will need fewer pencil guidelines to help you create these trees. The trees don't take very long to do, and I think they look pretty good. I know this is something that you can do. Depending on your experience level, it might be a little bit intimidating at first, but stick with it. The more trees you create, the easier and quicker the process becomes. When I create a group of trees, I always create the foreground trees first. What I mean by that is that I create the trees that are closest to the viewer. Usually with these trees you can see all or most of them because they are in front of all the other trees. After the foreground trees are done, then I start burning in the trees behind them. Generally, these trees are a touch darker than the foreground trees. The slight color difference helps convey the sense of depth in the group of trees. I'm not going to worry much about that with this particular artwork, but you may prefer to incorporate it into yours. The maple tree tutorial I mentioned earlier covers this concept in greater detail, and it also demonstrates it. So I'd recommend watching that to get more information on the subject. As I'm burning, I pause frequently to evaluate my tree. I'm making sure that the tree does not look too symmetrical. If it starts looking too perfect, then I'll increase the length of a branch. or burn the next branch at a different angle, and maybe even overlap this branch onto an existing branch. Basically, I'm doing my best to incorporate a lot of variety and randomness into my trees so that they look more realistic. Well, I've run out of things to say, so you're going to get music for the rest of this chapter. I'll be back on the next chapter where I demonstrate adding filler trees.
They say we're born to innocence, but I don't really know if I ever had it. I must have let it go. Don't know how I lost it. Does it matter anyway? 'Cause when it comes to growing up, isn't that the price you pay? Do we start out in innocence and then they take it all away? Do we give it up in self-defense just to get another day? Maybe it was never real.
Use a pencil to draw a line where you want your filler trees to be. Then start burning in those trees using the same techniques that we used on the foreground trees. There is one thing I do slightly different with the filler trees, and that is I avoid burning over the branches on the foreground trees. I do this to help give the trees depth. Sometimes it is not possible to avoid the foreground trees, but I try to keep it to a minimum. At some point it becomes very difficult to create individual branches on the filler trees. When this happens, I just fill in the area with squiggly lines. One last thing I should mention is that I place a number of the filler trees off-center. This means that I tend to place the filler tree closer to one of the foreground trees versus placing it exactly in the middle between two foreground trees. For example, the tree I'm working on is closer to the tree on the right than it is to the one on the left. Altering where you place your filler trees helps create a more natural-looking copse of trees. For this last tree, I am using a 7mm black ink ballpoint pen. I'm drawing on a piece of notebook paper, so nothing fancy. I'm using the exact same techniques to create the tree that I did when using a pyrography pen tip. Practicing on paper is a great and inexpensive way to get familiar with the tree drawing process. You can draw as many trees as you need to get comfortable. I think at some point we all experience that fear of ruining a board. Practicing on paper can help remove that fear. I'm going to draw this tree completely, so that means I'll include the tree trunk and you can see how I handle that. I'm just going to draw one tree, but feel free to draw several and add some filler trees to your grouping. Since the techniques used to create the ink pen version of the tree are the same as the ones used to create the pyrography version, I don't have any new tips to give you. So instead of me repeating the same information over and over, you will get music to listen to for the rest of this chapter.
They say we're born to innocence, but I don't really know if I ever had it. I must have let it go. Don't know how I lost it, does it matter anyway? 'Cause when it comes to growing up, isn't that the price you pay? Do we start out in innocence and then they take it all away? Do we give it up in self-defense just to get another day? Maybe it was never real, maybe it was just a dream we had so long ago. How can we ever really know if we're born to innocence? Do we think about it when we're young and unaware? Maybe we don't get a chance, maybe we don't care. Either way, there's a price you're gonna have to pay. That's another piece of innocence you get to lose along the way. Do we start out in innocence and then they take it all away? Do we give it up in self-defense just to get another day? Maybe it was never real, maybe it was just a dream we had so long ago. How can we ever really know if we're born to innocence? Memories are all we have from that long ago. Is it good or is it bad? How could we ever really know when it comes to innocence? Do we start out in innocence and then they take it all away? Do we give it up in self-defense just to get another day? Maybe it was never real, maybe it was just a dream we had so long ago. How can we ever really know if we're born to innocence? Are we born to innocence?
Well, that's it for this video. I hope the information was helpful and that you'll be able to incorporate the techniques into your own artwork. Well, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next week.